So today I'm going to talk about a topic that isn't discussed very often, although sometimes you'll hear people's experiences related to this. I'm going to go into 4 types of out-of-body experiences. A couple of these out-of-body experiences are personal experiences. My personal experience, one was my father's personal experience, and then the other are hearsay or other stories that you might have heard about or read about. Are those real? And it's up to each and every one of us to make that decision. So let's get into it.
Welcome to Alcmy Intuitive Arts for entertainment only. Use your discernment. All rights reserved. Everyone is welcome. Do no harm. Join our community. Thank you.
But first, I want to say this is Lee, and I'd like to thank all my subscribers. Thank you. I'd like to say thank you to all my first-timers. Thank you. And I'd like to invite everyone to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And keep it positive. Keep the love flowing. You know, there for a while we had a lot of negative comments and people trying to interfere with the channel. So I'm hoping that that's over. Today we are talking about out-of-body experiences. And I am not versed in the science behind out-of-body experiences. I do not know what happens. I don't know if there's a portion of yourself that exits your physical body, goes somewhere else, or observes a situation. I don't know if this is led by the divine, like there's some kind of divine intervention. What the, physical properties are, the mathematical properties are of out-of-body experiences. What I do know is that people experience them. And what I also know is that science doesn't take this very seriously. And so we don't read a lot of science about this. I'm sure if you dug deep, you might find some science about this, but prevailing science doesn't believe in this, or if they have done any research on this, they've kind of suppressed it, would be my opinion. But let's get into it. So the first type of out-of-body experience is one that we hear about a lot, and that is when a person is facing some trauma or a near-death experience. And this actually was recalled to me by my father, who, when I was a young person, a kid, my father was in the hospital for many weeks, maybe a month. I don't know how long he was in there. It was a long time. And he was diagnosed with spinal meningitis. And he was very, very sick. And my understanding of spinal meningitis is that it's an infection of the meninges. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but it is a brain infection. And it is very, very dangerous. People can die from it. He almost died. And my father recalls being in his hospital bed, and one moment he was in his hospital bed, and the next moment he was above the doctors and nurses, and they were working on him, resuscitating him, and apparently bringing him back to life. And he told me he felt like he was sitting on the ceiling and just looking down at the situation. You know, I don't know how long this lasted, but he did recover. He went, back into his body. He recovered. He was still in the hospital. He was wheelchair ridden for a while, and he did recover, although he did have latent effects from having that disease. And, when you break down the word disease, it breaks down to dis-ease. And that's certainly what he experienced in that long period of time. And it was hard on our family because he was in the hospital, he wasn't working, he was very, very sick, and we didn't know if he was going to live or not. And so, needless to say, we were grateful when he recovered and came home. And I think that really gave him maybe a different way to look at life after he kind of faced his life that way. But I won't say it gave him a complete turnaround, because there were many things that happened with him that were karmic situations. I love my father, but he was one of those karmic people in my life. And to the day that he died, I know he loved me and I loved him, but he was definitely a karmic. Rest in peace, by the way, to my father. So let's move on. The next type of out-of-body experience was actually my out-of-body experience. I mentioned earlier that my father was a karmic in my life. And I remember laying in my bed. I was a very young child. I was wearing like a little nightgown, and it was pink, and I had one of those bedrooms with the frilly little, curtains, and it was really cutesy girly. And I was in my bed, and my father came in. For some reason, he was angry at me. And I was trying to take a nap, go to sleep, and he came into my room and up to my bed, and he grabbed me by the legs upside down. And the first thing that I did was freak out, because my pajamas, my little pajama top, went upside down, and so I was like really, concerned about revealing myself. And so that freaked me out. But what also freaked me out was I was upside down and being held upside down by my legs. I don't know if he was going to whip me. I think he was giving me a spanking upside down. And he was raging. He used to rage when he was younger. Or when I was younger, he used to rage. and he would do those things. And so right at that moment when I kind of went upside down and my dress flew up, I literally saw the back of my father. I saw myself upside down, and I saw my father like giving me a spanking. And I was just like a casual observer from the back, actually in the doorway. I was in the doorway looking at the back of my father and myself. That was an out-of-body experience. Needless to say, that was a but a traumatic experience, because for whatever reason, a part of me left my physical body, and apparently I didn't want to be in my body at that time. And maybe this is some kind of defense mechanism that people have. This was a traumatic event, so maybe it has something to do with trauma as well. And so I was outside of my body probably for a minute or two. I have no clue how long it was. But then I was back in my body, and then he let me down on the bed, and I was just like freaking out about, probably crying about what happened. So that was an out-of-body experience that I had. Another type of out-of-body experience that people have, and I had a lot as a child, and I suppose I still have this, and I don't know if you can just call that an out-of-body experience, but it occurs while you're dreaming. And in some spiritual circles, they say that people, while they're dreaming, they may leave their body and go somewhere else. And so I remember as a child, I used to do that quite a lot. I felt like I was going to foreign lands. I still feel like I'm going to foreign lands. So I don't know if that's out of body or if that's just your mind, processing things that when you're awake you don't process, but when you fall asleep you do process. So I'm not sure if that's an out of body. I know there's a process whereby people can do something called remote viewing. I know the government has had programs like this, and there's people, you can find them on the internet and on YouTube that say they do this. Certain famous people that are known for this, and they remote view, which is a way of bringing yourself to a different location and being able to witness what is happening in another location while your body remains in its current, physical location. So remote viewing is another way, and I think like out-of-body dreaming is similar to remote viewing, where you are able to mentally go to a different place and witness an event or people or things happening. I do recall a time when I had an experience that I believe was something like this. I felt like I was watching a movie. I have no way to verify if this was actually an event that I was viewing. In my mind, this was a past event, and I know with my psychic intuitive things, and other people experience this as well, that they may see things as a movie. It could be just an everyday event, like somebody you're going to meet the next day, or it could be something serious, like somebody, getting hurt or something like that. But these are different types of what I would call out-of-body or remote viewing events. The other one that I want to talk about is divine intervention. And I know there's a really cool podcast by Trapper Jack, and it has to do with angelic intervention. This occurs when people are, say, going to be in a serious auto accident, or, they're in some kind of situation where and it's almost like something comes down, like the divine hands of God or an angel swoops in and just takes them, or takes their whole car, or does something crazy like that, and they avoid what would appear to be a serious incident that may remove them from their livelihood. Some divine force comes in and prevents them from being unalived by some event, whether it be, a lot of times people talk about auto accidents and how divine intervention has worked on their behalf. And we did witness something like this in our family recently. There was an auto accident. There was somebody in my family that was hit from behind. They had a very split second to make a decision before they were hit. Like, they looked in the rearview mirror and they were conscious enough to make a decision that probably saved their life or prevented them from serious injury. And that, I do believe, was the divine hand of God, divine intervention, because it happened so quickly, and the type of decision that was made was a very cogent decision that, might take people seconds or a long time to say, okay, I'm gonna do this and move my car this way so that this won't happen. By doing so, this person, my daughter, was saved from serious injury. She was still injured, and she still is injured, but it could have been much worse because the person behind her was traveling at a high rate of speed and did not put the brakes on. And there wasn't very much time for between when my daughter looked in her rearview mirror, saw the car, and made the decision to just turn her car slightly. She really prevented herself from further serious injury. So I and my daughter both believe that this was divine intervention. So this is another way that we see this happen. Although she did not have an out-of-body experience, many people in this case will literally have a situation where all of a sudden they're over in a different location, or all of a sudden their car is moved, or it appears to be like an event where for sure they're going to. The hand of God comes in and just carries them to safety. So I call that an out-of-body experience. So I ask you, Have you ever experienced anything like this in your life? Have you ever had an out-of-body experience? Do you know somebody who's had an out-of-body experience? Do you believe in this? Do you think it's just a bunch of bunk? A bunch of lore? Or do you believe that there's some kind of scientific principle behind this that we just don't know about yet? There's a lot of science unexplored. To be honest, I think some scientists get stuck in their dogma. They aren't actually discovering what they could discover, but I'm not a scientist, so I can't speak on that. So talk to an expert if you choose. These are my experiences as a spiritual being. I'm opening a conversation with you. If you'd like to comment on this, I would love to hear from you. That said, peace, love.